Update 46 is packed with exciting new sets, mythics, and plenty of class changes across the board. Plus, we're getting a much anticipated subclassing feature. In this video, I'll give you a concise summary of all PvP related updates, so sit back, relax, and let's dive in. Hello everyone, Sayphex here. First, we'll take a look at the new sets. 3 Queen's Wellspring gives you 3 lines of max magicka, and on 5 piece, it adds 1 magicka recovery for every 100 magicka you have. In general, this is an okay recovery set, but to be honest, Wretched Vitality is already a far better recovery set. Plus, you cover your recovery with jewelry enchantments, Mundus Stone, food, or race. So this set is meh at best. The next set is Death's Dance. It adds max stamina, crit chance, stamina recovery, and on 5 piece, it gives you 1582 crit chance while you have 50% stamina or more, and it reduces your core combat abilities by 23% while you have 50% stamina or less. The core skill cost reduction part of this set sounds interesting as a backbar set, but I'm not really sure how strong will it be at all. Next up is Full Belly Barricade. It gives you max health and 2 lines of max stamina. And on the 5 piece, while you have a food buff active, your block mitigation is increased by 8% and the cost of block is reduced by 8%. In PvP, you don't usually block, so I think this is not a really great set for PvP. Moving on to Tideborn Windstalker. It gives you weapon spell damage, crit chance, offensive pen, and increases your direct damage done to monsters. Useless. Moving on. Next one is Harmony in Chaos. It's a trial set that gives you weapon damage, Slayer, weapon damage, Unperfected. It gives you another stack of weapon damage, which already sounds good. And while you're in combat, activating the synergy grants you a stack of Harmonized for 10 seconds, up to 5 stacks. You gain 1 stack every 0.5 seconds, increasing your weapon and spell damage per stack of Harmonized. As far as I know, 1 stack gives you about 86 per Harmonized stack for total of 430 weapon damage, which is not bad at all. However, I don't see it being used in small scale or solo at all. For example, in small scale, you don't want selfish sets, and in solo, it will be very hard to get these stacks at all. So, looks good on paper, but in practice, I don't see it. Next up is Recovery Convergence. It gives you Healing Done, Minor Aegis, Max Magicka, and Healing Done on Perfected piece. For the 5 piece, while in combat, Overhealing Done is converted into stored energy on you for 20 seconds. After overhealing for 100,000 health, your energy maxes out, granting you the Convergence Release synergy. When you activate this synergy, you restore about 7,000 max stamina and magicka to yourself and other group members. After activating this, you are unable to store this overhealing buff for 30 seconds. In a nutshell, this set is bonkers for bold groups. They are gonna absolutely love it. And it could also be used in small scale, however, it will be a touch harder to do the overhealing, but it's still absolutely strong. Next trial set, it's Kapzian's Cruel Signet. It adds weapon damage, Minor Slayer, offensive pen, and Unperfected weapon and spell damage. On the 5 piece, on dealing area direct damage, places a sword above one enemy, and you cannot place a sword on the enemy that already has one from you. After 6 seconds, the sword falls, dealing roughly 300 damage. This damage cannot critically strike and it scales off your max weapon and spell damage. This effect deals additional 33% damage for each additional sword you have on other enemies. A 6-second delay might be a bit weird to proc, as I think it's a touch long, but who knows. But maybe you can put enough swords on your enemies in the 6-second proc window to be worth it. It will need some testing to see how many of the enemies you can proc it on, and it could also work as a gigantic execute. The final trial set is a heavy, called Delirious Arena. This set gives you maximum health, minor ages. It also adds armor and max stamina on perfected piece. And on 5 beats, while bracing creates a distortion barrier around yourself. You gain about 600 armor, and the enemies within the distortion barrier have their armor reduced roughly 1843 for 2 seconds. And both effects occur every 2 seconds, and you can stack them up to 3 times. Basically, this set gives you a lot of penetration, roughly 5,000, which is enormous. It's also a unique way of getting pen. Like, for example, you have major breach, minor breach. You can get a additional pen from, of course, your passives, and Delirious Arena Weapon would give you insane amount of penetration. However, you have to block, so kind of maybe. Sounds cool though. Now we're moving on to the Mythics. We will have a 3 new Mythics coming next patch, and first one is Rakhat's Void Metal. In a nutshell, this reduces your light attack damage by 50%. Your light attacks also restore max magicka or stamina, depending on your weapon equip, and you can roughly restore about 431 magicka or stamina per light attack, which sounds really high, but we'll see in the end how good for recovery this one is. In general, this item also increases the damage of your heavy attacks by 50%, and it can no longer restore resources. Now, my biggest question is if this set can also work on mid-swings, but we'll see this later on in PTS when they will release this mythic. Next mythic is a touch of a weird one. It's called Mad God's Dancing Shoes. While in combat, roll dodging creates a random effect. This effect can occur every 3 seconds, and it gives you a lot of effects. It could give you a wheel of cheese that deals damage in an area. You can deal physical damage to enemies facing you. It deals magic damage to the nearest enemy. It gives you major expedition, restores stamina, reduces cost of your next non-ultimate ability, and it can grant you ultimate. For me, this mythic just gives you a whole bunch of nothing. So it's kind of a troll mythic. Anyway, moving on to a really good mythic. It's called Monomyth Reforged. This mythic gives you, while in combat, your primary weapon gives you major force, minor berserk, and as a penalty, you get minor vulnerability. But on your back bar or secondary weapon, you gain major protection, minor vitality, but as a counter, a minor timidity. And minor timidity drains 1 ultimate every 1.5 seconds for 10 seconds. This is decent, so you might have to spend a lot of time generating ultimate on the front bar, and yeah, still amazing mythic. With the new gear covered, we'll come to the new main feature. In a nutshell, subclassing allows you to swap one of your class skill lines for another from another set. For example, as a Warden, you can swap out your green skill line, which is not very used for, let's say, one of the X, for something stronger. For example, let's say siphoning skill line from Nightblade. For example, you can take from there a Soul Tether ultimate, and you can take siphon attacks, which you can put on the back bar for some recovery and other benefits. To be honest, the sky is the limit with this new feature, and I cannot wait to see what other players will come up with. So tell me in the comments down below if you already have some new combo envisioned. Also hidden among the patch notes, there is actually coming a new CP perk, a CP star. It's technically from a green tree. It's not really PvP related news, but I think it's still worth mentioning for everyone who will try to grind the skill lines for to be able to level up your character as fast as possible. Basically, they give a new star called Discipline Artisan. It's on the green champion star, which increases the amount of experience gained for the active skill lines and abilities. I think this just gives you a much faster leveling curve. How much the percentage, we'll have to check on the PTS. Plus, they will reduce the amount of points, the champion points you need to unlock other green skill lines, which is, I think, a pretty nice change. Now we're moving to the core of the patch notes, combat changes. First, I would like to touch on the pet changes. As major combat nerf, they are changing the number of pets that are available to you in PvP. You will now only be able to have 5 pets in PvP instead of 10. This will be a huge and systemic change or nerf for, I think, necromancers, as the corpse count as pets. Most of your skills count as pets, or they leave a corpse on the ground anyway. Personally, I'm not a necromane, but I will be interested on what other players who do play necromancer a whole lot more think about this change. Next, they are changing sneak, and it's not gigantic change. They will just make little changes to sneak, where some skills will reveal you from stealth, as the stealth will now be available for all the classes if they choose to use so. Alright, now let's break down the changes for Dragonknight passives and abilities. In the latest patch, there's quite a few tweaks here and there, so let's get through it. First up is Ardent Flame skill line, where the combustion passive got a nerf. The damage bonus to burning and poisoned are now 33% max, down from 40, so 7 less. And the resource restore is now 423 mag and stam instead of 1000, which is more than 50% of a nerf, so a lot less sustain. Then the warmth passive got reworked. Now it boosts your dot damage by about 6%, and it slows them for about 30%. So enemies are slower, but also your dot damage is higher. Moving to Draconic skill line, the Dragon Leap got a bit of a fix, where now after you land, you still get a touch of CC immunity for about 100 milliseconds, which in the end will allow you to not look like you desync when you use this ability. Burning Heart also got a nerf. Healing received is now only 9% instead of 12. Scaled armor actually got buffed, which is great. Now you get almost 3k armor at max rank instead of 1650, so pretty good buff. Also, the Elder Dragon also got a buff, which boosts your health recovery and per slotted draconic ability for about 323 now. And finally, Earth Heart, the Stone Giant, now properly removes stacks when used, and we have a nerf to Magma Armor and Magma Shell. Now it disables the ultimate generation while active, so no more building ult inside your ult. Battle Roar also got a huge nerf. Now when you use your ultimate, you only return 35 resources per ultimate spent instead of 50. So in general, DK's got a huge recovery nerf, but maybe in the end you can still substitute it with a recovery set or some enchantment adjustments. Alright, let's dive into Templar changes. Big focus this time on Adriatic Spear with some nice updates across the board for Dawn's Wrath and Restoring Light too. Okay, so for Adriatic Spear, puncturing strikes and its morph now hit up to 6 enemies instead of everyone, and they deal full damage to all of these 6 enemies. Plus, every target is snared, not just the first, and that's a massive buff for the cleave pressure. Puncturing Sweep, it's the one of the morph, got its healing nerfed. Now you get only 25% per damage back instead of 33, which is less sustain on 1v1, but in general you'll get much more healing when you are up against 3 enemies or more. Biting Jabs now has 10% chance per enemy to apply Sundered instead of 3% before, so it's a decent buff. Burning Light got a mini rework. Now it scales purely with weapon spell damage and not your max stat, which is great. And plus it has a 10% buff to apply a status effect. Spear Wall is a passive, and now it gives you minor berserk and protection instead of just protection, which is amazing, and it's a huge buff for this skill line. Piercing Spear now gives you 12% extra crit damage and block versus block, up from 10%, which is a 2% straight buff. The skill line, the skills Spear Shards and Luminous Shards got a dot damage increase for about 23%, and luminous shards. For this morph, you can actually activate your own synergy, which will feel nicer. Blazing Spear also got rebalanced, which initial hit is now down from 23%, but the dot is up for 53% overall, which overall is about 10% damage buff if enemies stay in your EoE. For Dawn's Wrath skill line in Templars, the backlash got a bug fix and now it properly hits all targets. Radiant Destruction now saw a full rework. Basically, the channel duration is up for almost 5 seconds, 4.6 to be exact, and you don't need to reapply it. Now it costs magicka per tick instead of upfront, and overall the damage per tick is up by 12%, but the execute starts at 30% instead of 50 in scaling all the way up to 500% bonus damage. But what is also interesting, now it's dodgeable, which is a huge for PvP. And it's not just auto death sentence anymore. When it comes to these two morphs, Radiant Glory is now 33% cheaper and it heals you for about 20% of your damage. Radiant Oppression is now starting to scale the execute at 39% of your health. When it comes to the restoring skill line of the Templars, Healing Ritual now respecs sight, a line of sight, and is no longer being able to heal through walls. The Mending passive now boosts all healing, not just restoring light heals, and it scales with missing HP up to 13%. Lightweaver also got reworked. Now it gives you a free auto block for 2 seconds when you start channeling or casting, once every 15 to 30 seconds. But it no longer gives you this massive armor bonus with Rite of Passage passive. It also won't trigger if you already have an auto block active like Shield Wall. Moving on to Nightblades. Nightblades changes are next with mostly tweaks to passives, with a few important adjustments to green focus and huge buffs overall. The assassination skill line, Master passive got a big shift. Now it gives you 8.8 crit chance when flanking instead of penetration, and it also no longer extends stun duration from stealth. Pressure points passive got a small buff. Now it gives you 2.5 crit chance per assassination skill slotted instead of 2, which will give you a bit of a boost. Grim Focus got a huge buff. Now it stacks up to 10 times instead of 5, so it takes longer to charge up your procs, but it will be worth it. But the damage per stack is a touch lower, so it goes from 45 weapon spell damage per stack down from 60, and for Relentless Focus is 60 instead of 80. So in general, you will now be able to proc Green Focus twice instead of once, so you can do it twice in a row for huge damage. And the permaglow effect is gone. You can only see the glow when you actually have the stacks, which is okay, I guess. When it comes to the Shadow skill line for Nightblades, the Dark Vigor passive got a buff for 5% more max health if you have Shadow ability slotted, up from 3%. When it comes to the Siphoning skill line, the Catalyst now gives 30 ultimate when you drink a potion instead of 20. Magicka Flood is now a touch redesigned, which gives you now 6% max magicka and stamina if you have siphoning skill slotted instead of just magicka, which is huge. Soul Siphoner saw a healing nerf at rank 1 and now only gives 1% healing per siphoning skill slotted, down from 2, but that is fine. When it comes to the Sorcerer, Zos is doubling down on flexibility with Daedric Summoning and smoothing out some of the long-standing clunk in the class. For Daedric Summoning, big news is that there is the pet and non-pet split is gone. With the subclassing in place, you can now drop this skill line completely because it focuses on pet gameplay only. The Conjure Ward and its morphs now don't give you healing if you don't have the pets from Sorcerer pets. The Regenerative Ward still heals, but only if there's a pet active. and it's about 5% of your max health or magicka. Daedric Prey tweaks now boosts only Sorc pets instead of for 50% instead of all pets, which could be too strong if used with a Necromancer. Rebate passive now gives you 371 magic and stamina instead of 300 for when a non-Daedric skill ends. So more sustain. Also, Daedric Protection now gives you 5% damage reduction while one of your Daedric skills is active. Expert Summoner gives 5% to all free stats, health, magic, and stamina if you have a permanent pet out. When it comes to the bound armor and bound armaments, it stacks now up to 8 times instead of 4, and just like Green Focus, you can cast it 2 times in a row, 4 daggers per activation. The overall damage per dagger has been dropped by 10%, but you will have more breathing room when it comes to your rotation. Dark Magic skill line, Crystal Frags now can retain their proc state even on a back bar swap, making it feel way smoother across dual bar setups. Also, Persistence passive got buff. Your next ability after blocking is 18% cheaper instead of 15%. When it comes to the Storm Calling skill line, Hurricane now keeps its full ramp damage at the final tick, so it's no more random drop-off at the end. Mage's Fury, the execute, is now half of the duration from 2 seconds instead of 4, so you will have to be a lot more accurate when it comes to your executes. Capacitator is now reworked, and it gives you flat health, magic, and stamina recovery of 141 instead of the percentage recovery. Expert Mage now gives you 108 weapon spell damage per Sorc skill slotted instead of the percent scaling, so now it's cleaner and stronger for stacking power. Warden has gotten a clean identity boost. When it comes to animal companions, Bond with Nature passive is now increasing your healing by 1530 at max rank. Flourish gives you a recovery boost up to 20% magic and stamina recovery, a flat buff across the board. Advanced Species now gives you 5% crit damage per animal's companion skill slotted, up from 4%. Stacking damage buffs are just better now. Green Balance, Nature's Gift. The whole Green Balance skill line got buffs across the board. Basically, Nature's Gift restores more magic and stamina, so 277 instead of 250. Emerald Moss, healing bonus per Green's Balance skill slotted bumped to 5% instead of 2, which is nice for the healers. Lotus Flower skill got a touch nerf for 23% when it comes to healing with heavy attacks, but to be honest, it was never the strongest healing skill. When it comes to Winter's Embrace passives and skills, the Northern Storm, the ultimate, got its damage per tick down for 33%, but the stack now gives you 2% bonus damage instead of flat weapon damage. Plus, the full uptime is now up to 20 seconds, up from 13. So the Northern Storm will last for a very long time. Frozen Gate skill has improved server performance and more responsive pulls. When it comes to Glacial Presence, the chilled proc chance is now increased to 250% at max rank. And the damage scaling now is based on 10.55% of your highest and weapon spell damage. Frozen Armor now gives you 1240 armor per slotted skill, which is a lot more. Icy Aura gives the enemies a Winter Bite debuff, and at 5 stacks, this debuff gives them major maim for 3 seconds, which is, I think, a huge defensive buff for you and, of course, a major debuff for your enemies. The snare resistance also got removed, but with the juicy new counterattack mechanic, it's a huge trade-up. Piercing Cold passive now has a complete change. Now it gives you permanently 10% more frost damage and 8% extra block, regardless of your max HP. When it comes to Necromancers, they received quite a few updates also. The Gravelord skill line, the Flame Skull and its morph now generate a corpse on its third cast near the enemy's location. Venom skill, the one of the morphs, corpse generation is limited to once every 3 seconds to prevent spam stacking. Also, the Grave Lord's Sacrifice no longer grants extra corpse from Flame Skull as it now has built-in corpse generation. That Kneel passive now gives you 20% crit chance versus enemies under 33% health as long as you have any Grave Lord ability slotted. Reusable parts passive, summon cost is reduced. Reduction is buffed to 66%, up from 50. Dismantler passive, penetration buff is more than doubled. Now it gives you 3,271 pen when you have a Grave Lord skill active. When it comes to Bone Tyrant skill line, Bone Armor and its morphs are no longer creates a corpse, and it prevents a free corpse generation while idle. Empowering Grasp now gives major maim to enemies instead of boosting summoned creatures, damage, better group, and utility. Health Advires, healing taken is increased to 3% per skill slotted, up from 2, which will make you a lot tankier. Last Grasp passive now gives max HP boost is nearly doubled to 2041 at max rank. When it comes to Living Death skill line, Creative Curse now has healing done increase to 12% when you have a negative effect. Before it had 8%, which I think it's a big buff. Near that experience, crit healing chance is down to 12% based on target's missing health. Bitwars was 20, which is sad to see. And Undead Confederate recovery buff is reduced to 155 while pet is active, down from 200. And final class, we're moving to Arcanist. It has received some changes to the beam builds. Herald of the Tome skill line, the Fate Carver and its morph, it's the beam skill. Now it has a 40% higher cost, which is insane, but it also has 8% higher damage, and now it has a hard cap of 6 enemies instead of the unlimited as before. The Splattered Secrets passive, the offensive penetration is increased to 1,240 per Herald ability slotted, up from almost 1,000. The Harnessed Quintessence passive now grants you 284 weapon damage while you are restored Magica or Stamina, replacing the whole percentage shenanigans. Creative Reforms skill line, when it comes to Arcanist domain passive, minor buffs now respect the 6 target cap, aligning with the standard AoE rules. Reconstructive Domain Morph now prioritizes low health targets for healing and no more wastes heals on the full HP tank. Healing Tides passive, healing per crux is increased to 4% instead of 3. Hideous Clarity passive now restores both Magica and Stamina instead of which is higher, which is amazing in my opinion. Soldier of Apocrypha skill line got a few buffs as well. Ages of the Unseen passive got a armor buff bonus increase to 3,271, up from 2,000, which is massive. And Wellspring of Abyss passive, recovery per slotted ability is decreased to 81% from 129, which also was well needed. Moving forward from class changes now to Grimoire changes, and there are 2 interesting ones. First is to Old Seals Contingency. This one got cost increases across the board. Basically, all of the damage versions now cost 3,780, which is about 250 more than previously. And healing and damage shield versions now cost almost 5,000 instead of 350, which even before it was massively hard to sustain. The banner bearer skill got its cost redesigned. Now it has a flat drain every 2 seconds rather than a percent reduction. So for all focus scripts, you have now 459 magicka and stamina per tick. On the immobilized focus, you get 720 stamina and health per tick. So you'll have to have a lot more recovery to be able to sustain yourself. Now we're moving on to item set changes. There's not a lot that are useful for PvP, but we'll still cover them. The Footman's Fortune set now increases your block to 14% instead of 8. Highland Sentinel set loses all the stacks and no longer forces you a dismount. Azure Blight set now requires 20 additional stacks for Blight Seed per group member wearing this set. Noxious Boulder set, the new one, fixed an issue where the boulder would miss all the targets if dodged. Its damage can now also be blocked, and the first impact now hits all enemies within 6 meters, not just direct targets. That's good, I think. The monster helmet, Glorglock the Destroyer. This one also, if you lose stacks, it no longer dismounts you. The Infernal Guardian helmet, procs can no longer remove AoE abilities. Zol the Ever Wakeful monster head no longer procs when you have slippery CP, if this CP was triggered. Slime Claw, the 1-piece crit chance bonus has been moved to a 2-piece bonus for consistency with other sets. Now moving to Mythic item changes. Sira Bane's word only activates while actively bracing. And Rokuren Steam Guards also have the same change, so it triggers only when actively bracing. When it comes to the other sets, Matt Tinkerer got a visual update for its Fabricant, and it instantly completes the attack, preventing the loop bug or the unreachable pathing. So it also no longer counts as a summon for ability interactions. Sentry is set when a target is detected, attacks will not miss anymore. When it comes to trial sets, Slivers of Null Arca, these stacks got a damage increase for 8%, and the cooldown got reduced to 4 seconds, so it got a bit of a buff. The Kain's Wind set now triggers when you overheal yourself or an ally instead of when applying a major buff. For those who don't know, the Kain's Wind gives you Kain's Blessing for 4 seconds, and this one recovers 420 stamina and magicka every second, which is like a recovery set. And that wraps up the patch notes summary. If you're curious about my initial thoughts on what update 46 could mean for PvP, be sure to check out my previous video. Now have a great day and goodbye.